You can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. My feet have come too far for you to tie 'em to the ground. You can't stop me now. Can't stop me now. Set my sights on where I'm going at. They turn it back around. You can't stop me.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Psych Coffee Shop. So, guys, tell us about your new project you're working on.
Well, we just we just finished a book. It's called "Entering the Mind," and it's literally about entering your mind and looking to explore it in new ways, in different ways, particularly to seek out its natural state,
Right,
which is the essence
scary.
of us all. It's scary. The idea of it is scary, but actually doing it is amazing.
Cool. So, how did y'all get to working together?
Well, we do everything together.
Yeah.
We're partners in life,
Inseparable.
partners in crime, partners in love, partners in everything. So yeah, we pretty much do everything together.
We've done art projects together in New York and LA, and we have a magazine together called Riot Material. It's an art magazine, art and literature. The book I wrote over the last year while Rachel was producing her own record. So, and we're doing this side by side and kind of talking to each other through the whole thing. So, yeah.
How is it? I get this all the time. Someone asked you guys, how is it working with your partner? Like being side by side, working day in and day out with them.
Yeah. Well, we love it. I mean,
it's super easy.
It's easy because we're easy. We don't put too much pressure on each other. Chris is good at some things. I'm good at other things. We kind of balance it out, and we keep the conversation going. That's key. Good coffee and good conversation.
Yeah,
exactly. That is within my negotiations, that there must always be a good coffee pot in the house. Otherwise,
Yes.
I have something called grounds for divorce, and that is one of them.
Coffee grounds for divorce.
Exactly. So entering into this idea of getting into our mind, how did y'all break into it? Where did you start? Because there's a lot of thought on the 5 bodies and what's really contained in the mind. I mean, the Egyptians threw the brain out because they just thought it was useless. And
yes. Yeah. I mean, I would trust the heart over the brain. But when you're entering the mind and looking for what they call the natural state, you're looking for the state that is beyond body, all bodies. And you're looking for the essence of the self, which gives rise to the body. And this is a process that's quite easily done. Once you start to get into it and you get the teachings that point to you, there's a series of questions that lead up to you recognizing your own mind. Up until this point, you've experienced this mind, but you've not recognized it because nobody's told you about it.
Right.
So once you recognize it, then it's up to you to sit with it as much as you'd like and get to know it. And as you do, you become more intimate with it. You become more friendly with it. You trust it more and more, and the knowing of it becomes more profound and life-altering.
Right. And it gets more into the, being able to have a more conscious thought in it.
Way more.
Yeah.
And opening into that inner voice, inner thing. A lot of people teach meditation. I mean, I don't care what psychic program you take, even mine, I teach meditation. How important is that?
Meditation's key. I mean, I honestly think that meditation is something that should be taught in all schools across the world, get kids really into it from a young age, because meditation, I mean, of course, there's loads of different types of meditation, but meditation itself is the only true way that we get to know ourselves, that we actually sit with ourselves. And, we really want to get to know ourselves on a deeper level. And all meditations will take you from that conceptual thinking into the non-conceptual state. And the particular meditation that we do, which is Zog-Chan, just opens up that whole world of consciousness, and you can deep dive into your own mind, into its natural state. And what this does in over a period of time, I mean, it doesn't happen the first time you meditate, but if you just keep a regular practice going a little bit every day over a longer period of time, a few months, maybe a year, you actually begin to feel that, you know, you don't feel so stressed, you're not so emotional, you're not so up and down all the time. You just have this sort of certain calmness about you, and anxiety, fear, depression, all these ailments of our modern society can literally just fall away.
Do you think that part of our problem with our modern society is the high pace and the removal of some of these standard practices that we've had?
Yes.
I mean, meditation, you label it prayer, label it meditation, whatever. Up until the late 1800s into the industrial era was part of our average practice.
Yes.
Every human done it.
Yeah, it's so true.
And if not that, they'd be walking through the forest or walking down a dirt path and you know, listening to the birds and, you know, hearing their own heartbeat and, you know, paying a little bit more attention to their own emotions and moods and all of these things.
Right. Yeah. Just having, like you said, a slower pace, a certain stillness about their, you know, their world and the way that they move around it. And to your point, like being in nature. I mean, these things can reground us into that meditative state. And, you know, and there are still, you know, there's few cultures out there that are still upholding this tradition of meditation. And most of them are sort of Eastern philosophies and Eastern communities. But, you know, I do feel that there's a bit of a rise in the West towards a renaissance of sorts of meditation.
I would agree, but I think it's a different flavor.
Yes.
When we look Eastern to Western meditation, I feel Western meditation is a different flavor.
Right.
You know, I think that a lot of the low beat chanting music or non-music that's out there, the binaural beats or whatever, is not going to attract this generation.
No.
Right.
You know, so instead of doing that to my students, I would make them go find their favorite heavy metal music.
Right. Yeah.
And use that for meditational music, and they're shocked by the results. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think whatever works for you, because really, if you're doing the right meditation, you can allow for anything to arise, any sound, any soundscape, any visual scape. It doesn't matter, because the meditation should allow for whatever we experience, because that's the whole point. The whole point is to bring the meditation back into the real world, which has all those things going on anyways.
Right.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you put an album out. Is it out?
Yeah.
Where can we get that?
Right.
Why isn't that included in this press kit?
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk. Yeah. It's called XI, and Rachel's the badass singer and poet who makes it all happen.
Yeah, I did it with my music partner, Eddie Hulten, and we got together over the last couple of years, and we've been bashing back and forth sounds with voice, with poetry. I'm a poet. I've been writing poetry for years. And it was my dream to put it into an album. And so, yeah, we did it. It launched September.
Awesome. Is it on our network, Spotify?
Yeah, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, everything. Just look for XI. And you should find it. Yeah.
We can send you a link.
Very cool.
We'll send you a link.
Please do, so I can include it into the show notes. And you're a writer by trade. What other projects are you doing? Because this was a deep book. I'll tell you, this is a deep one that really takes on like Joseph Campbell and thoughts of physics and thoughts of energy work. Like, guys, I normally say, oh, this is an easy read. No, you need a notebook and a highlighter and some Post-it notes.
Well, it's true. It is a deep dive, but being a writer, being a poet, also, I really wanted to make this lucid as can be. So every word, every sentence, every idea is intended to really slip in. So even my 80-year-old mother, who doesn't read these kinds of books, she loved it. And then Rachel's mother, who forget about it. When she says when she's dead, her bones are in the ground and it's over. And she read it and is just digging it. So it's really meant for the Western audience. And when you say, you know, the Western world has a different flavor for their meditation, I totally agree. And the language also needs to be of a certain flavor that resonates with the Western world. And this book does. The metaphors are very Western, but they're very natural.
Right.
They're no longer the Tibetan metaphors that are on the verge of being cliched.
Right.
So it's really speaking to the Western ear and the Western mind.
Right. And also the Western cadence, because when you read the book, you can feel a rhythm.
Yes.
Or, some people call it an author's voice.
Yes.
And this one's very much not that humdrum. This moves forward at a very good pace, but it's got a lot of good terms, a lot of good taking points, carrying points with it. But can you take a moment to explain a little bit to our listening audience the tradition you took this from?
So the tradition is called Zog-Chan, and Zog-Chan is an ancient tradition, really, and it was really practiced and perfected in Tibet over the last 1,000 years, up until the Chinese came in and invaded Tibet in the 50s. And this sent all of the great Tibetan masters fleeing to various countries. And while it was an absolute tragedy for Tibetan culture, it was a boon for the Western culture, because it was at this point that this very secretive, very hermetic teaching was released into the world. And it took about 40 years for it to start to get some traction. And I happened to be right around that time in the early 90s when I was starting to hear whispers of Zog-Chan. And I was seeking, just seeking what is the meaning of this place, this planet we're on? Why are we here? And these teachings just brought it all home. From the first day I started reading about them and then receiving teachings from some Tibetan masters, it all cleared up for me. It all made sense. But the only philosophy that I've ever known, and I'm an academic by trade and by heart. These teachings said hello to me in ways that nothing else had. So I just started practicing. And to this day, I'm a student. But I felt that I reached a point where the teachings were revealing themselves to me in such a way where maybe it was time for me to speak to them. And so I spent a year writing the book.
Just a year. Wow. Because it has a lot more information in it. Plus, also, you've been publishing a magazine at the same time, the Riot Material magazine. Tell us a little bit about it, because we know it's literal cultural magazine, but what else is it? Because, there's always a flavor deeper into it.
Well, it looks at good film. There's a category called Cinema Disordinaire, which has 50 years of all the great underground cult type movies that are my favorites. Like a lot of horror and some really bizarre stuff. We have a category called Riot Sounds, where these tracks that come about every few weeks or every couple months that just hit you grooving. I put that in on the site, but we do review a lot of art and just ideas, philosophies, plots.
And it's like your philosophy before starting the magazine was to really reach out to good writers and have it as a writer's magazine as well. Right. So, it's not just that sort of 2-minute blog read type magazine, even though it's online. These are really well thought out articles critiquing the art world in a very sort of profound way, which I think you particularly felt that you were struggling to find out there.
Yeah, it's hard to find good writing, especially about art or about anything really. Yeah,
I read a lot. I have to. It's just me. But the art world in itself, it's hard to find good art writing. They can actually understand the artist's voice, understand what the message they're trying to portray, and then to actually cover something modern.
Right.
It's cute to look at Picasso and what he done 50 years ago. What about the artist that's putting on an art show next week in LA?
Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly it. And that was very much the premise for the magazine, really. And not only just modern and contemporary, but really what's at the cutting edge of our society. Artists that are taking a risk that ultimately wouldn't necessarily get any highlight shone on them, from other more established magazines. So, it was really the philosophy to bring out this, bring out the undercurrent of the art world as well.
So what has been your most controversial take on a painting or take on some artistry?
I never find art too controversial. I like it when an artist pushes it really hard toward challenging society, you know, where it touches on all their highest and most intense fears. The problem is that the art world isn't necessarily doing that these days, where it was for, you know, through the 70s and 80s and 90s when, you know, homophobia was fierce and, you know, artists were out there just pushing visuals into the face of, you know, all those who are trying to sanction against it, and succeeding largely through art, the practice of art. And I love it when artists push it that hard. And I don't care what they're pushing hard on, as long as it's articulate, it's thoughtful, challenging is great. I mean, the Black artists these days are really pushing hard against the, you know, the cultural milieu of racism, and, you know, so the totality of it, police abuse, you know, they're really working those angles incredibly well. And that's probably why Riot Material has a strong focus on the Black art world at the moment, because it has something to say. It's alive, and it has a voice. So, you know, if you're speaking loudly and if you're speaking words that sing to us, then we're going to listen.
Exactly. And, you know, and especially visual art, you know, you were speaking about when it was really getting, you know, and artists do this, they challenge our boundaries, both only in our mind, but also in our symbolism. You were speaking about them when, you know, the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of LGBT plus art out there. A lot of hard images being put out there. The, you know, African-American artists are currently doing that in the United States. Where do you feel the flow is going?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Where do you think the flow is going next?
Well, I don't have a good read on that, because I think everything's coming back to life again, and everything's changed. And, you know, where we left it a couple years back was, it was at a place where it was in LA. The art world was at a peak. And then it shut down. And two years later, it's coming back to life in ways that we're still trying to understand and get a finger on. But this is happening not just in the art world; it's happening across the spectrum. You know, everything seems to have changed, which is, I think, great. But it's going to take us we're going to have to learn a new language to try to talk about it, I think, maybe.
I would agree. I would also agree that we're going to probably see some dark art.
Yes,
because if we look at the artwork of the Renaissance era comparative to pre-Black, you know, the Black Death and post-Black Death, that artwork got a lot more darker then.
I would love to see something on the level of Diamond Dogs, David Bowie's Diamond Dogs, that kind of darkness, that brutal darkness where it just, oh, it's gorgeous.
It is, and it really brings out that theme. And the Boundary Store? What's this?
The Boundary Stone. The Boundary Stone is the exact opposite of entering the mind. It's me going in as a poet into the inner world, not understanding my own mind, but trying to explore it and put language to it, and literally putting my middle finger up to any reader who ever wanted to think about coming in to look at what I was doing. And that poem sat in a drawer for a good 10 years before it was coaxed out, and I kind of dolled it up a little bit just to kind of get a little more readable. But it stands as it stands. It's a tough read. It's a beautiful read, but it is a total exploration of the inner world, which ultimately led to Entering the Mind, and ultimately led me to write Entering the Mind in a way more profound way, I think.
Very interesting. So you talked about Joseph Campbell in the book. How much do you find his teachings relevant? Because I have a lot of people that, you know, want to talk about like Joseph Campbell and the other ones, but some of their older dynamics don't work anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I still find him really relevant. I find him relevant because his historical references are so profound that kind of level of cultural historical references, they're never going to leave us. They're embedded in our cultures and global cultures. And so I don't know, I feel that his work is super relevant still. I mean, but that doesn't mean that we need to sit on, you know, a great, I mean, I believe he's a master of sorts, you know, but
He,
I don't
I
think we
would
should.
agree that he is, but a lot of people have a real hard time trying to understand some of the things he brings about because they no longer apply.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just wonder if is that a little bit of laziness on our part not to do our research and not to dig deep into the full like mythical gestures of our life these days, because I think we try to understand things on such a mundane plane often,
Mhm.
and we try to kind of simplify everything into this realm that we can understand, that we move about in, that we exist in, that we can touch and feel. I don't know. I find his teaching so beautifully open and explorative because they literally don't do that. They don't trap us into the reality. They do actually spark our imagination
Mhm.
and lead us down the paths of sort of mythical journeys.
Right.
That's how I respond to his work. I'm not sure. How do you feel?
Well, I love him. I haven't really spent much time with him in recent years, although we did rewatch The Power of Now about a
Mhm.
month ago. And I was blown away again by his insights into humanity.
Mhm.
But honestly, I don't remember mentioning him in the book. You may have just read him in the book that I've completely forgotten if I've mentioned him at all. But I know we spoke about him after the book. But either way, he very much Campbell was an advanced practitioner of something.
Right.
And I don't know if it was Zog-Chen, but he speaks to so many of the things that I do reference in the book. So it's probably a one-to-one naturally anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the Zog-Chan traditions, how do we get into them? How do we get it past that gray matter of fear that we have a lot in our society now, when it starts delving into the mind of, oh, I'm losing my mind if I'm, seeing things float within my viewpoint. Oh, I need to call the psychologist and hop on 5 pills.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say let your fear push you into the Zog-Chen teachings. Fear is what allowed me to enter the Zog-Chen teachings, and it was fear from a lifetime and a pre-lifetime.
Mhm.
Or if it's not fear, then it's some sort of inner quest that's pushing you toward something that you have no idea. You don't know what it is, and that could bring up fear too. But the
Mhm.
fear, I think, when you're experiencing fear, you're close.
Yeah.
What are you close to? Only you know. But fear means you're on the edge,
Yeah.
and you're close to something very profound. And I would say let that fear take you all the way.
Yeah. What I find it too is walking a very steep mountain and you start panting really heavy as you get to the top.
Yes.
Stop and you catch your breath, you're going to go back down the mountain.
Yeah, you'll roll down.
You'll roll back down.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's beautiful about this particular practice is that you really do continue to be enamored with the process. Like,
Mhm.
like you said, like, why are you climbing that mountain? Because you sense there's a peak. You might not see it. You might get to that peak and then you see another peak in the distance. And I
Mhm.
think that's a little bit like Zog-Chen. You feel in moments, that you think, wow, this is just like an awesome experience. I mean, not necessarily in the moment, but like after you've finished your meditation session, you go, wow, that just felt so good. That felt really like I was getting somewhere. And then that in itself is inspiration to keep going.
Mhm.
Have you ever had mushrooms?
On a salad, yes. The type we're talking about, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure some of your listeners has. There's
Oh,
a
yeah.
moment on mushrooms after that big rush hits you and you've giggled yourself to death, and you're just now relaxing and you're looking up at the stars. This is very akin to the Zog-Chen view when you've entered into this natural state. Actually, mushrooms take you very close to this amazing state. But after all, the buzz of the mushroom leaves you, or it could be any kind of probably psychedelic,
Right.
where you've just crossed over and now you're beginning to relax into this. And your mind is a bit more awakened. It's a bit more spacious. And so you can kind of get a sense of what we're talking about if anybody who's been taking mushrooms all their life. there's some information there for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes in many other ways. It comes through running a marathon. You just hit a groove where you're suddenly in a groove and nothing. You're on your game and it's perfect. That's also you're there.
Oh yeah. And part of that is that emptiness, getting to that no voice in your head, no idea, no thought running through, no chipmunks doing their dance across your forehead.
Yeah.
Yes.
I find students have a hard trouble with that.
Yeah. Well, that's the beginning stages. I mean, anyone that starts to meditate at the beginning, you're going to be struggling with this conceptual mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is, we're taught from a really young age just to think, plan, program, strategize. And, and of course we're taught that the intellect is the biggest gift that we're given. And we're taught to use that thinking mind. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But the purpose of meditating is to, first of all, calm that mind, calm that thinking mind. But what happens is some people enter into their meditation and their mind doesn't just calm down because the mind isn't used to calming down. And so they get super frustrated and like, oh, I can't do this. Meditation isn't for me. I can't sit still for 20 minutes. Forget about it. And my mind won't stop. But actually, that's just the beginning stages. It's like anything that we train in life. You don't wish to run a marathon and then literally run a marathon. It takes months and months of training and you build up little bit by little bit. You run a mile, then you run 2, etc., etc. And meditation's pretty much the same. Like it's okay that you feel like you're failing because you're actually not failing at all. The fact that you're doing it and the fact that you're sitting still for those minutes each day, that in itself is your successful meditation.
How do you feel about positioning?
Like the way you sit? Yeah, that's very important, I think, because I know the Zog-Chen tradition tells you quite strictly to sit in the 7-point position, which is basically sitting down with your legs crossed and your arms just resting in your lap. The reason for that being important is that what you're doing is you're keeping the wind channels open in your body. And the idea that, your crown is sort of pointing towards space itself, but your root chakra is sitting down towards the ground to ground you to the earth, because the point of this meditation is to stay alert. The point is not that your consciousness leaves your body and you just start floating around. So you need the grounding of your body through the root chakra, but then you also want to access the universal consciousness, which is out there through your crown. So sitting in this position, I think, is really key so that you've got all of the channels open and you've got this flow. But it is also important that you need to be comfortable. And so, I use like a bolster pillow and I protect my back and I get myself leaning against a wall and I get myself as comfortable as possible. Because what you don't want to be doing is just being conscious of the fact that you're aching, your aches and pains are disturbing you the whole time. But yeah, the position,
losing the feeling of a leg or an arm.
Yes, the pins and needles.
I've not done this. And it's because my wife won't slow down long enough. But we've talked with people on the show and off the show that have gone to ashrams for like 3 or 4 weeks, and they do that all day 8-hour meditation. And you first hear about all the wonderful things that their mind and the universe gave them, and then you hear about all the positions they tried that they had to have someone, one of the helpers come and get them out of. And it's like, yoga masters are nice. Tibetan masters are nice. You don't have that flexibility. You've not been doing yoga for 50 years.
Exactly.
Doing Tai Chi for 50 years. Don't fold yourself that way.
Yes, so true, so true. Well, we were actually planning on going on a retreat in September, and we were actually looking online earlier for just these little chairs that you get, these little fold-up chairs to support you, to just help you sit there. Because I'm like, I can't sit there for 8 hours without any support.
Exactly. But I think you covered a very important point, was keeping the wind channels or the chakra alignment in order. It doesn't really matter the rest of it, like where your legs are. Because Eastern says don't cross legs, Western says cross legs, this, that, another. But that more important part of keeping the chakras in line so the energy can flow through.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they say absolutely. And of course, a lot of masters say that if you do have any problems with your limbs, I mean, somebody might have had, they might have a broken leg, or they might have some ailment there, or hip replacement. You can sit in a chair also, but the fact is that you're keeping your torso as straight as possible. But again, if you have problems there, lean against a wall. That's totally fine too.
Lean against the wall, a nice, comfortable office chair. They're actually really fairly organizedly designed if you have gravity issues, i.e. getting off the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the more important part, especially with someone delving into this to begin with, is just begin.
Yeah, exactly. And whatever feels good, and it's just about, just set yourself a small challenge. It could just be 5 or 10 minutes a day, like 5 minutes, 2 minutes even, but just find a time in the day that's comfortable. I mean, we tend to just meditate in bed before we even get up and start living our day, because that's easy. We have a cup of tea and then we'll meditate before we've even left the bed. Like something that's comfortable for you, and something that just feels like you can just start a rhythm and start a habit, because then it can grow. Then you can build up to 20 minutes, half an hour. You can do it for an hour. You can do it for as long as you want, but it's just starting a habit that you can do once a day.
Right. And I like the idea of 5 minutes. You set your phone for 5 minutes, or your favorite rock song, or whatever song's going on in your head, that you can zone out to. Because you kind of brought up something earlier about just being out in the woods and being realigned in nature.
Yeah.
That's what I call alpha brain, is when you don't know the time or whatever. So you want a timing mechanism if your life is operating on a tight watch.
Right.
And taking that time, and I found it very important for self-care. Now, what are some health things that you guys have seen, or have y'all seen any health benefits from those that have delved into this?
Well, the book speaks to also, before you even get into the deeper meditations, the body needs to be in pretty good shape in terms of diet and health issues. If you're really dealing with some serious health issues and you're in a brain fog, or you're just riddled with cancer, this is going to make it difficult for you to actually get into the deeper, calmer mind. So there's a couple chapters that speaks to how you can just clean your diet up with organic foods or locally grown non-pesticide foods. That alone will really clear away the haze of mind, and it will allow the body to sit for longer and be clearer. So health, getting yourself healthy pre going in is great. But then once you begin to dive into the mind and begin to relax into it, it's unbelievable what takes place. The depressions leave you, all kinds of maladies that we experience here in the Western world. They just literally disappear into the space, like opening a window in a kitchen that's filled with smoke. You open the windows and it all just leaves. And all this happens while you're training in Zog-Chan.
Right. And with the Zog-Chan, do you also recommend journaling afterwards? I mean, because a lot of the inner thought comes out in emptiness.
Yeah,
I think you totally could. I think that's a great process. I mean, literally, the book was me journaling during meditation. I mean, I was writing the book from a place of meditation at like 2 a.m, 3 a.m. So you could call that journaling. And for me, it actually deepen my own knowledge of the teachings by writing about it.
Yeah.
So yes, I think writing is great.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's true, because you're there in that state of non-thought. But what happens is thought arises, from the non-conceptual state. But they arise, it's innate wisdom that's coming to you in that moment, because there's no intellectual thought. So it's just this pure thought that comes to you. And it doesn't mean that every single thought that you have is a good one, but you sense the difference, and you sense this knowing, which sort of is almost like a visceral feeling. And if that's coupled with a thought, more than likely that thought is coming to you from your higher self, telling you something, or asking you to think about something, or have you thought about this, or could this be a solution? So you're right. Yeah, some incredible insights come through this state.
Right.
And I don't journal actually, but now I might try it.
You might want to try it. And here's
Yeah.
why. It's because I don't know. I don't use the same technique, but I find I use more of a medium technique. I find that a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity comes out of that zero thought idea.
Yes.
That, when your brain has had that time to reset,
Absolutely.
or restart,
Absolutely.
then its major programs start coming back up, and it's like, oh, while you were gone, here's these 42 emails that came in.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
It's so true though. And it's also, I love what you've just brought in there, the fact that it's a creative process as well, because,
Right.
we were talking about art before, and art is a very meditative process also. And meditation is a very creative process. And these two really go hand in hand. And you're really kind of tapping into this, the source, the divine source, whatever you want to refer to it as, but it's this higher level of consciousness within yourself that starts to express itself. And I see that totally. It's a really creative process.
It can be very creative. So what's this deal with labels?
What's the what? Sorry?
What's this deal with labels and letting go of labels?
Labels.
Well, so one of the problems you're trying to get into this state beneath the conceptual state, which is they call it the non-conceptual state or the natural state. And this state you can't even use language to talk about it, really. You can use metaphor. There's words don't really do it any justice. And so one of the problems going into that state is the stories that we tell about ourselves, which is just laden with words and ideas, and these are all attached to us, all of our great achievements and what we call ourselves in this world and who we think we are. This is all fine and good in the world that we're living in, but if your pursuit is to get access into your higher self, well, you need to now look at those very labels and stories that you're placing on yourself and just get a handle on it. See what you're talking about. I can see I've been saying this about myself for the last 40 years. Why do I keep saying that about myself? Or I've been calling myself an addict for this many years, but am I still an addict? Have I really thought about it? So, these things can trip you up as you go into this natural state, because it's a lot of information that doesn't need to be there. And so you want to let it go so you can now visually see and experience this space that has none of that.
Yeah, and get into that space of really, because we pick up labels. We pick up sometimes negative labels.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we hold on to them.
Absolutely.
Way too long.
Way too long.
Yeah, and they're like old shoes. They no longer fit us.
Yeah.
So examining our labels, I think, is a very important process, and meditation causes that to come out.
Yeah.
It does. Absolutely. I mean, and it's labels that we put on ourselves. It's labels that other people put on themselves too. And I just met up with my brother. I hadn't seen him for a few years, and met up with my brother, and he reminded me of the age when I was a teenager and I didn't know how to boil an egg, and I boiled the pan down to nothing. And I just turned around to him. I said, yeah, that's a really funny story, but who's still telling that story?
He's still telling that story because it's one of the ones he holds on to.
He's holding on to his little sister.
Meanwhile, his sister's cooking an amazing meal for him, like profoundly good, and he's not acknowledging how good it is.
Right, he's missing out on the meal I did cook.
Right, and that's being in present.
Yes,
being
exactly.
in focus and now, and we get trapped in those memories. We get trapped in that moments of, oh, I remember, and it's like, but who's telling us story now? Who's even talking about that story?
Exactly.
It actually is quite boring.
Yes, it's like, what's better than the moment now? There's nothing better than that. Yeah.
And how much more fun do we have in the world when there's no stories that are binding us down? Like when we're kids, the reason why we look back on joy at our childhood is because there's hardly any stories that are being told about us. It's all in the moment.
Yeah.
And if we could kind of like drop a lot of that stuff, we'd really have a lot more fun anyways, besides being able to enter the meditation more easily.
Very much so. Now, I do feel kind of sad for this generation because now, we're looking at a generation that's 22 years old. Their whole life is going to be brought up for them for the rest of their life, day by day.
Because of all
Facebook
the
memory by Facebook
Yeah.
memory
Oh, yeah,
by
yeah.
Facebook memory.
Oh, I know. It
Yes.
almost makes you want to throw up.
It does. How much does digital influences affect the meditation spot from your point of view?
How does it affect it?
How
I
much
find
does
it. I find it does actually. If I'm working on emails or if I'm, working on the magazine and I want to go meditate, or, occasionally if I get on social media because I have to post some stuff for Riot material, and then I'll go through feeds. That stuff sticks in the back of my head, and I go into meditation and I have to really combat it for a good 15, 20 minutes. So I do notice it, but of course we're living in a world where it demands it of us. We
Right.
have to be moving through all these different terrains, and I'm okay with that. But it's something that I'm very aware of, that it is a problem. This digital is like a little something gnawing at the back of your head. It's there just chewing away. And it's a bit annoying. Yeah.
I tell you what, though, what I feel is the meditation itself, though, allows us to become more detached from that whole social media.
Right.
Like I really don't care that much about it. I do it when I have to, but I'm not investing my every self in that post or in that, how is it getting response, on the outside world. So also the flip side of that, it disturbs a little bit, but also, I don't know, I'm feeling like I have a much more healthy relationship with it. It's not governing anything, and the meditation itself is definitely helping that.
Right. Interesting. So, as you creatives you both are, and the magazine, what else are you doing? What are you up to? What's the next project?
Well, Saturday we're going to Hawaii.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on a family vacation
We haven't seen
for
our
a
family
week.
in a while. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
So
my
that's
mom's turning
going to
80.
be fun.
We're going to go celebrate her birthday.
Yeah.
And then my daughter's birthday is also tomorrow or the next day.
It's Thursday. That's
So it's like kind of a little birthday celebratory thing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Hawaii. We haven't been to Hawaii, so that'll be fun to check that out. My brother's over there, and then we're not really doing much creatively at the moment. I don't think, unfortunately.
I mean, we've got. I mean, this is taking up a lot of our time. Working with
Promoting
the
the
book
book.
and promoting the
Promoting
book.
the book.
But I do. I'm sort of loosely thinking about how to get my poetry into some sort of a presentational package, but video, sound, music, so it's probably going to take me a year, though. So I've got no expectations on the finish line or anything. It's going to take me a while. I really want to just sort of package everything together. Maybe it's an installation ultimately,
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, just having this sort of full immersive experience of sound, video. Because I mean, the album that we did, we had I did a video for every single track. So it's very visual too. Yeah.
Oh,
and
awesome.
they're all up there on YouTube. So it's really kind of storytelling at my maximum skill set, putting it together. So I don't know, something like, I'm sort of inspired about that and where I can take it, but there's no sort of defined outcome yet.
Right. Very cool. And are you just writing the magazine now, or you
just doing the magazine, working with writers? Like after a year and now almost a half since I started the book, I'm a little bit walking around like shell shocked. And now listening to the birds again, and smelling the flowers for the first time in a while. Starting to work on the house again, fixing things that fell apart. So, I'm kind of back into little baby mode.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like that when you get into a creative flow or creative fashion, you do what a lot of psychics do, and that's all they do. They just get zoned into this box.
Totally zoned.
The whole house could burn down around them as long as the keyboard is open,
yes,
or the phone line is active. they don't care.
That's exactly it. I mean, like in the year that Chris was writing the book, you know, he'd be getting up in the middle of the night meditating for like 4 or 5 hours during the night. You know, I'd wake up, roll around, oh, he's in his pose, go back to sleep, wake up, he's still in his pose.
But also writing.
But he'd be getting his notepad out, getting his iPhone out, writing down. And so he was full on for a year, because that's a pretty, like you said, it's a pretty short time. To write a deep book. 1 year is not a lot of time. So
with so much of this going into it, and as the depth you went into, again, I thought this was like a 5-year book, you know, a 10-year book that you've gone in and drug in and, you know, pulled all, you know. There are people that do your writing style, which is the actual live the practice, write the practice, live the practice, write the practice. And then there are other authors that'll go and they'll stack research up throughout their house. You know, they have Post-it notes on the ceiling. So I've always found it interesting to find out the writing, you know, how you went into it. And you're doing 4 to 5 hours a night in pose and coming in and out of meditation to do notes. That's impressive.
Well, it was, you know, we were in this moment where nobody was doing anything. And I realized when that ended, we were going to have to get jobs again. And that hit me. It was like, wow, do I ever really want to work again? Maybe I'll just write this book. And if we're lucky, if I write it well enough, we may have something to sustain us for the next few years. And that was kind of what got me going, because actually I didn't want to write the book. My meditation practice was going so amazing that I knew that if I started writing a book, it was really going to throw a wrench into that practice. And it did. But nevertheless, I just said, okay, you know what? This is it. I'm going to roll the dice and see what happens. I'm glad I did it. But now I'm done with it. I'm ready to, now I'm going to have to look at the next few months and see what's next. Do I get a job? Do I reach out to friends? And, you know, what do we do?
Right.
You know, like,
do you start teaching some meditational workshops on Zoom?
Maybe.
I don't know if I want to do that.
I think it would be a lovely accompaniment to the book, especially with some of these techniques. They could definitely use some audio to them and some video. And then, you know, do you think with the 2 years that, you know, everyone took off from being public, that that we're going to see a lot of prophetic artists coming out with like massive showings, you know, where an artist would normally show 8 or 9 paintings, they're going to have like 28 to show.
I think so. And I hope so. That brings excitement. I really want that to happen.
I think that, you know, the art world is about ready to take a new birth.
I think
saw this in the 20s also of 1920, like, you know, right after World War I, World War II, we had all these new artists. I mean, Grandma Moses came out, all these other artists came out. I think we're going to be seeing that too, because, you know, at the beginning of the break, everyone jumped into gardening, crafts, hobbies, and passions they hadn't pursued.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Which means that they became more human again. They're returning to their beautiful source. And now it's time to share that with the rest of us. What have you done? Show us, you know, put it together. And even if you weren't planning on doing an exhibition of any kind with your work, think about it and pull it together and show us what you've done. It could be so beautiful to see all this creation.
Now, what's your thoughts on the modern art? Do you think that we can take lessons from this vacation, like virtual art showings? Or do you think they have to be in person?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because so much art is about the experience of being with it, in presence of it, and especially visual arts where there's texture, there's 3-dimensional qualities to it. I mean, a lot of our artist friends said that the virtual effort was good just to keep people entertained, but it had no profound effect on anybody's response to the art in terms of either commercial or just appeal, or even, you know, writing about it and critiquing it. And so I don't know. I think that really is the beauty of art, is that it's experienced in the real. But that's not to say that digital art hasn't evolved a lot since then.
I think it has. Digital art, it has. I'm wondering what VR is going to do as it progresses.
VR. Oh,
Yeah.
virtual reality. I thought you said art.
Yeah.
The VR. I mean, that I think we're already there. That's gonna just explode. I
Mhm.
mean, I think there's I think technology is way more advanced than we public know
Mhm.
about. And I
Right.
think it's out there. I mean, we know that even the military, they're experimenting with all kinds of things that we have no idea what's going on.
Right.
And it's only a matter of time before that comes out and that starts to become shared and utilized. And I think that we're going to come to this point where we will become our avatar, living in a completely different reality, in a completely different universe.
I had an
And
idea that this virtual world that's building up all around us in every dimension, it seems like, to create some sort of hermitage. Like you have the virtual world and everybody's doing their thing, but if you want to in this world go get some meditative teachings, I could be the one, Rachel and I could be up there in this hermitage and we could give these teachings, like on Zoom or whatever, or how, I don't know, I'm not quite sure how it could be done, but they actually walk up these mountains through these amazing mystical scenes, and they enter this incredible temple. And then we're sitting in there, smoking cigarettes and ready to impart some good teachings.
Yeah.
That could be great.
Well, I don't know if you guys have heard of Second Life. It's Life or what, Second Life or whatever.
Yeah,
it's really interesting because they've built they've copied a lot of the museums, the bigger things you can go to, and there's a sim. You can own a sim that literally, like, their avatar has to climb up through the range of stairs and stuff.
Yes.
If somebody came to me and proposed that I participate in that, and I was allowed to go up and sit in this hermitage, I would definitely say yes to that.
Yeah.
That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the major thing will be connecting the virtual world to the real world.
Yeah,
but I think art will probably be the one that takes it on first.
Yeah, I think so.
could be.
I mean,
it's already trying. If they're already attempting to make it happen, then it's going to happen for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, because the technology's there, we just got to you've got to blend that example. If you have an oil painter that you use to filling the oil and being able to sense it by touch if it's the right mixture.
Yes.
Getting it into the virtual world, and that'll be the harder transformation. That's where this book comes in, in probably a way you probably didn't mean it to. And it was stripping away the two-dimensional world you're in into the world that's already three-dimensional in your mind, and being able to transfer it into other mediums.
That's a great point, actually.
Yes.
That's a great point.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I mean, I definitely believe that moving forward, if the 1920s was revolutionary in many terms, and now the 2020s are revolutionary in these terms, I think the next expanse of science that we're going to experience from now on is going to be the science of consciousness.
Yeah.
That's
the only thing we haven't. Well, it's not the only thing we haven't figured, but it's the one thing we haven't tapped into.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the one thing that we have within all of us. We all have access to that, but we haven't been able to monitor it, or, we haven't been able to measure it per se.
Right.
But honestly, like, I think if we could really push our whole society into this idea of experimenting with the science of consciousness, there's no end to what we can do. And then we don't even need the avatars in a virtual reality. We can just be our own consciousness in a whole new reality that we're creating. That I find even more fascinating.
But also scary, because have you seen some of the minds these people are walking around with? Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. And
it was a pleasure.
And talking about your creative projects. Again, Entering the Mind. You guys go and get that book. Read it, but take a notebook with you. You'll need it.
Yes.
We'll take a sip, and then we'll bring Techy in for the other part.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey. You have a great evening.
You too.
Hello, Techy Joe. How are you, darling?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well.
So that was a really awesome chat.
It is. It was a great chat. It was really a deep chat. There's a lot of things that go on in this book and a lot of trainings in this book. This is a really good, deep book. I think it's on your desk currently to be going into.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on that stack of books I have for you to read.
You know, it's been a crazy day.
Crazy day, honey. It's been a crazy month. Things have gone all over the place.
I know. That's why, like, you actually caught me off guard because I was working on a couple of things while I was waiting to come in, and I was just like, "Oh God, he's about to transition to me. Hold on a second."
Yeah, like, very much so. So, it's been crazy. You've been crazy. Everything else has gone a little wacky for wacko, but our baristas will be finding out about that on Wednesday night. Baristas, this is a reminder, 8 p.m. Wednesday, you have a Zoom meeting with us, and we already have something to talk about.
Oh, we have something to talk about, yes.
Yes.
So, yeah, many things.
Yes.
As always. But no, it like today alone has just been the day of like, if I had actually planned today, this would not have been the day I planned. Because yeah, it was just like my day started before I got out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then people started letting me know that.
Well, your day started 3 hours before you got out of bed, but that's beyond here or there.
Well, yeah, it was one of those weird experience days. Like, okay, like this is what I knew I had to do today, and then like this is what happened around it. And I went, okay, but it kind of rocked.
Right.
Like it was really hectic, but like I knocked out everything but like one client's problem. But considering that was their second problem of the day, I'm cool with that.
Well, just because it was their second problem of the day, that's really not even the whole problem. We've already solved the whole problem. We just have to explain to them.
Yeah, basically the client, I joked earlier today that I think they hired the wrong one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't need technical support. They need a saging, a cleansing, a blessing, an exorcism, something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like paranormal investigator would be good for them. And like we're joking about it. Like the client and I are like back and forth joking. Like they called me like they've had so many problems with her. Like, let me just tell y'all, I know this is Psychic Coffee Shop, but come on. This is the level they're at. They have had so many problems with printing and printers and stuff like that. I literally point blank had to ask them today. Granted, I was killing time, but I asked them today. I was like, because we went through all the troubleshooting, and I'm like, and they had already done everything. They got a troubleshooting A+. And then I finally just had to be like, did you sacrifice a virgin? Like, I forgot to ask. I gave you a lot of troubleshooting, credit there. Did you sacrifice a virgin? And they're like, oh man, that's what we forgot. Like that's where we're at. Like it kills me. That's where my day's been. It's like
It's been interesting. It's been really interesting. We've had mostly an office day. It's been admin city and playing around.
Admin and repair.
Yeah. I really had on my light blue shirt today and done all my light blue things.
You did. I actually did a monitor replacement spanning 2 client meetings. Like, as in, I'm literally sitting there, like, we're having we're having 2 separate client meetings, and I'm doing a screen replacement.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we're rocking this. This is cool.
Right.
It's just a weirdo thing that, like, I don't know. I never envisioned having a client, having 2. 1 would have been too many in my mind to have had of client meetings and a screen repair. Because y'all know me. I like laptops. Manufacturers of laptops, can we have a conversation about the crap you pull?
Yes.
Because 2 this week with screen issues.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm just dealing with like crap design, like really bad crap design.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what is y'all's problem?
Well, the problem is they're made to be disposable. We don't make things that last anymore.
Well, but like the sad part of like one of them, like, okay, now granted, one the screen replacement was due to damage.
Right.
But now, and arguably, this other computer also not so much damage, just I get a strong feeling it's a student's machine.
Mm-hmm.
Or basically it's someone who carries this computer a lot,
Mm-hmm.
like for long distances,
Right.
often,
Mm-hmm.
and it's wear and tear.
Right.
The problem is I've already repaired that one once,
Mm-hmm.
and it was literally on like the day after the warranty expired,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, you could have gotten a whole new computer. Like, because I remember the conversation being like, they waited a couple of weeks
Mm-hmm.
because, like, you know, they didn't have like stuff life.
Right.
And I just like the point when I plug in the serial number to the manufacturer's website and I watch and I see the warranty expired, like just like a day or so before, and I'm like, oh. Like, no, you could have mailed it in. They would have sent you a whole new computer.
Yeah, but that computer's got a design flaw from hell.
Well, and I'm noticing it's common, and what it is it's manufacturers are cheap. They really, really, really will at any point do a cost-cutting measure.
Mm-hmm.
And the new, wonderful, brilliant thing that they're doing is they're using these short little like inch and a half after the monitor, like when it goes towards the case, like inch and a half of cable to immediately plug in right next to the hinge the data cable, data and power combo cable, for the screen.
It, again, it's a bad design.
Yeah, because that's one of the points most likely to fail on a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Like hinges, A1 for failure. Like, I don't, like, you can be the gentlest little person in the world to your computer. I don't care how gentle you are to it. Those effing hinges fail one way or another. They either, like, hinge stress is a thing. It's a fail point. Why? Why, oh, why would you put the cable right next to the part that wants to fail the most? Oh, bad design.
Right.
Like, I mean, it touches it, literally rides it.
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, so now this client once a year has to send me this laptop because for me to reseat the cable.
Right.
Because a year of opening and closing this machine wiggles the cable just enough that, and we're talking about something that has the thickness of cellophane, like reinforced cellophane. That's where we're at, like transparency sheets.
Right.
And like these little teeny tiny microscopic hair width pins that have to perfectly align, otherwise 80 bar the door.
Right.
You get screen weirdness until it's reseated. It's so stupid. Oh yeah, those dumb plastic pins and the hinges that break. Oh yeah, that's even worse.
Yep.
But anyway, sorry, that was our psychically non-psychic.
That was our techie side of psychic. So, do you have an Are You an Asshole, or do you want to use mine?
Oh goodness, let's use yours.
Okay.
You'll have a fun one, I'm sure. Alrighty. Oh, excuse me, guys. Am I the asshole for serving my husband's family mac and cheese for dinner. I'm just going to answer off the top. No. Like, are you in the South? Have you been? All right, my husband, Asian, and I, American, welcomed our firstborn 4 weeks ago. The baby is healthy, thank God, but I'm exhausted, haven't fixed my hair, barely able to shower, and cannot sleep. My husband's family had been pressuring us to visit to meet the baby. I tried to hold them off as much as I could, but yesterday I was surprised to find them standing on the porch. Turns out hubby invited them for dinner. I was embarrassed and felt like I wasn't ready for visitors, judgmental ones at that, because the house was a mess, y'all. Anyways, my husband sat with them while I fed my son, and then later I asked my husband if we should order takeout for dinner. He said no, because his parents would find this rude and unwelcoming. He suggested that I go inside the kitchen and prepare something, anything long as it's homemade. I said fine, then went and made some mac and cheese. The reason I prepared this meal is because of how easy it is. Once I served the family, my husband's mom looked at me and was appalled. I noticed something was wrong. She asked if I really found it appropriate to serve her and the family mac and cheese. Asked why not, and she went on a rant about how disrespectful this was, and that I clearly have no experience in what is right and wrong when it comes to hosting. I said, excuse me? Who said I signed up to host an unexpected visit from them, and she took it, or excuse me, to host an expected visit from them, and she took it as in I didn't want them there. Her husband said they were just there to finally see the baby I kept them from seeing for an entire month. That's a whole month of his life they missed out on. We had an argument and they decided to go home. My husband said that deciding to serve his family mac and cheese was more offensive than serving them nothing at all. I told him I was too exhausted to cook their traditional feast, that I was forced to learn from his mom. He took offense and said that I was being mean and disrespectful towards not only his family, but his culture. I went inside the bedroom to stay with my son. My husband stayed on the phone with his family for an hour, then kept giving me the cold shoulder and refused to eat what I cook in support of his family. I understand how some guests might find it offensive, especially his family, but I was just trying to make a quick homemade meal like my husband wanted. What's wrong with mac and cheese? Edit. Okay, so I'm seeing commenters here offering to come over for some mac and cheese. It's amazing to hear that some people here would appreciate this kind of meal. It kind of makes me feel relieved and reassures me that I didn't mess this up entirely. Come on in, y'all. I'll be more than happy to serve you some mac and cheese. Some of y'all even offered to bring mashed potatoes and pizza. LOL, would love to have y'all over sometime. Ain't nothing wrong with mac and cheese. Like, honestly, I gotta say, if you were a guest in this house tonight, you were getting Burger King. That's where we were. Like,
well, where we were, and Burger King is fairly healthy, and yes, but mac and cheese is a traditional dish in this house with you.
It is. I'm sorry if you were offended by being served macaroni and cheese as an entire meal in and of itself, and I don't care if it comes from the box. Get out my house. That's all I got for that is get out my house.
Well, I'm wondering what their traditional feast is and why that grandmother wasn't in the kitchen cooking for that poor mama who needs to feed her grandchild.
I mean, I'm sorry, she created life. Give her a fucking month off. Like, damn. No. I know there are women that have children and seems like, they burped and then they're perfectly good to go. That is not most women.
I have a comment to read here. Because I was like,
Oh,
well, maybe it's a traditional thing. No, we have been clarified with this idea.
oh, they were Asian, yeah.
Okay. This isn't a culture clause. These people are assholes. There isn't an Asian culture that I'm aware of that doesn't practice some form of proportional conflictment, where it is expected that the new mother do nothing more than rest and bond with the baby. If they were so traditional, they should have shown up with food, offered to clean the house, run the laundry, and while they were at it, in NTA between.
Oh, not the asshole. Yeah.
Yeah, not the asshole.
Yeah.
Edit. Thanks for the awareness, y'all. I'm Asian too, and even though I live far from home now, I totally enjoy being able to just rest and bond with my baby in the early days of post partum. And this one's the top comment. So, no, they're high and mighty and trying to live on a chain that isn't projectable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, well, but overall, like, why is this a surprise to people that, like, at least the first month with a newborn, like, some kids are easy.
Right.
Like, they just, like, they're easy. Like, they're happy-go-lucky little people. They're just like, you're going to feed me. You're going to love me. You're going to change me. Like, it's cool. It's cool. I'm cool.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you're getting. You may get the fussy, cranky diva bitch. Like, some people are just born a fucking diva, okay? Like, they don't stop crying till they die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, feed me, change me, love me, buy me a Mercedes. That's it. That's all they've got. Like, they're just waiting for the words to start on, like, you know, Mercedes, Louis Vuitton, college education, dental work. Like, that's all they're gonna do their whole life. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know what you're getting. That first month is an adjustment period.
Oh, no. Another writer writes in, and I'm reading this also. To be actual, there's a laid out tradition of this. The first week, the mother-in-law takes care of the family. The second week, the mother of the mother takes care of the family. And then it goes on to the brother's first wife or the sister for the next 3 weeks.
Jesus. Yeah, I don't know that I would want that many people storming into my life or the chaos and confusion.
No, they trade off responsibilities.
Well, yeah, I know, but I wouldn't necessarily want that many different people traipsing through my life. Like,
well, I don't know. Okay. So let's play this out in what I just read into my brain and our world if we get a lovely child. Okay. First week is Mama Knight's week to take care of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Second week would be Miss Beverly's week to take care of the house. Third week would be either thou who should not be named or Lisa. So I will take Lisa.
Oh, come on. Let's bring in your sister.
Weeks, though, I don't know. I think I hope that doesn't apply to adoption.
I was going to say, well, let's start with the realities. Okay, so first of all, we're going to run a weed whacker through your penis and scrotum. Then we're going to have you deal with your mother for a week. Then we're going to have you deal with your No. I'm sure you're going to week 4 hop out of bed and be like, let's make some macaroni and cheese.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no. No.
Not only that, but like, apparently quotations traditional feast. Well, that's I know at least 2 meats, 6 vegetables.
Of course, other commenter, I couldn't stand to be in my room for more than 2 weeks after I had my kids. Yeah. No, I'm back to let's make it realistic. No, because it's not just like, yeah, there's a lot going on. Like screaming, crying, newborn, pain, like, no.
Body changes, body taste changes, the cravings alone.
Well, yeah, and you were just a human factory, so you've got some hormones going on.
Uh-huh.
Like, like your body's got to readjust to some shit. Like it was supporting a whole other second parasite. And now it's not, and it's got to figure that out. And, like there's a lot. There's a lot. Like, no.
Yeah,
No.
apparently, let's just put it very nicely. Her in-laws are the asshole. The husband is the jackass.
Oh, yeah. 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 I think the only thing my butcher block would have done that night would have been to have made sure he didn't create another child. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. I would not have taken kindly. I do not think.
Right. Well,
don't
it's like
have a female reproductive system, cannot bring a child into this world by that route. But I think if I could, and that situation occurred, you're gonna have to fight real hard to prove it was, not a crime of insanity.
Right.
Because I'm going to take full advantage of, I just created life. Like, let me take a couple.
Well, even that, like when you had your neck surgery, I locked the house down. Nobody's coming in until I say, like, mom, not even mom night. Nobody came over. You will get video messages if necessary.
You're like, we'll show signs of life. He'll hold a newspaper. Like, no. Well, I mean, and I don't know that we really exactly had to go that far so much because I was mostly out of it.
Yeah.
Like every time I woke up long enough to take meds and crash back out.
Right.
And
and
mostly because of the crappy way they wrote my meds, but that's a different
story. But my point being, and I don't know where in our culture we have gotten this idea, when someone is sick, they become a show pony. When someone is, had a baby, it's an in and out show.
Well, no, it's like we seem to get it if people are sick. You tell someone you're sick, people will at most like drop off food and run away. And like those are typically really good friends or really nosy, annoying people. One of the two.
Mm-hmm. Here's an example. Your grandmother getting visitors at 10 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, well, that was like one family member, actually. That I mean, granted, she got it after the one-time conversation, but I was so mad that night.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part is, I think it was about the first time she ever saw me lose my temper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she had this idea of who I was,
right.
and done a lot, like, like stuff going on there. Like I have walked through like some fiery moments with this woman, and I don't think she ever saw me lose my temper. Like I was just like, okay, that, cool, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that night I just absolutely snapped. I could have strangled her.
Mm-hmm.
Because what had happened in this situation, she called and talked to my grandmother, 90-some years old. Everyone else in the world has figured out, heard, been told, whatever. She has dementia. She talked to my grandmother. My grandmother hung up the phone. I just looked over and said, "Oh, who was that?" And she said, "Oh, no." Well, what were y'all talking about? Oh, no. We went back to watching our program. Flash forward a month later, I get a call, 11 something at night. Hey, we just crossed over blah, 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 and we'll be there in about an hour. What? Meanwhile, I woke my grandmother up out of bed because she called the house phone. So, of course, my grandmother gets back up to meet and greet. So she gets there and comes through, bounding through the front door, just like, hey, we made it. I said, well, that's great. Let me go work on the guest room. You know, and she's kind of like, what is your problem? And I'm like, did you think about calling to let me know? Well, I called Mama. I told her. She has dementia. I know nothing. She knows nothing that you were coming. And this house does not run like a Swiss watch-based bed and breakfast. Okay? I need warning. I need a month of warning.
Mm-hmm.
Just to handle you being here for like 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many slow moving parts in this house.
Mm-hmm.
Like breakfast is an ordeal. Lunch is an ordeal. Dinner is an ordeal. We have people scheduled to bathe her, to come in and do this. We have like all these things.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot just drop 2 random people on my doorstep
Mm-hmm.
at like 1 a.m. into this mix.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was said way more angry than I sound right now, let me tell you. And she just was like, sorry. Like, do we need to stay somewhere else? And I'm like, no, I'll make it work.
Yeah, but
Like,
that's the whole point.
yeah, it's like, no, you don't. No, like, not cool, guys.
But, you know, people, I don't know, they just like to team the crowd, or there they are. Sorry, guys, I've been creating on my desk today, or my desk has been creating. Madison's got a question. We'll get that, and then we'll go on to relationship advice.
All righty, Madison, 12/15/2001.
She over 18.
Yeah, they're legal. They're legal. Sorry, that's one of those dates that messes with me.
I don't understand. My honey, it's not.
I don't know. Like, you're not allowed to be 18 yet. Is that okay? Can I say that? Am I old enough to say that now? You're not allowed to be 18, Madison, because I remember 2001.
Uh-huh. She's actually over 18. She's enjoying her, hopefully, her 21st year.
Yeah, I know, but still. Ugh.
So,
All right.
does
Sean have any interest in reconciling?
Yes, he does. But here's the thing. You're going to be lazy with it. Okay? You're going to have to be the lady in the cage just sitting back there letting him work for it. Work for it, Madison. That means you're not texting him. You're letting him text you. You're not asking him out. He's asking you out. You're sitting back and being relaxed and let him, I don't know, mow the grass, change a light bulb, look like he's useful. Okay?
Now go play with some Tonka trucks and braid someone's hair. God.
Oh, come on now. All right. On to relationship advice.
Fun relationship advice. Okay. Oh, goodness. Well, this is a short one.
It is.
All right. So what are the signs that you are in a healthy relationship? A lot of people give out the red flags or signs that the relationship is unhealthy or toxic. But I'm curious to know the opposite. what exactly a healthy relationship means to you, or what are the signs that you're in a healthy relationship and that you're with a good person.
And I'm letting you take this one because they hear me talk about relationship all the time.
Oh, seriously? Like, I'm a horrible
Yes, I'm
case
throwing you
example
onto.
of this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a horrible. And I think the reason we end up talking about red flags is because it's honestly easier to sit there and talk about the problematic signs than to sit there and like really nail it down for any one person what a good relationship is. That changes by person. It is very glove custom fit.
Right. But I think some overall signs is you feel comfortable with the person. They at least need to match your style of sense of humor. They got to be able to bounce back from an argument and see it as a negotiation.
Basically, yes.
Someone you can actually tell off, but not tell off, meaning you're not telling them that they're trash. You're telling them that this behavior is creating insecurity to you by a very big point. They got to get you and get you good. Example, Techy Joe gets me good. He leaves me in my planner world. He leads me to go to work as I want to. You know, he doesn't.
Oh, that's not what you meant. Okay. Sometimes I get you real good, though.
Sometimes you do get me real good.
Like, I'll walk you right into one and then be like, spring.
Yeah, but that's your sense of humor. A good mate needs to be able to want you to be better, enable you to be better, but not control you to be their version of better.
Yeah, like there's like that's one like, and I was noticing that was one of the first comments. Was that the person you're with actually makes you want to be a better version of yourself and doesn't pour their insecurities into you. And then you even still have to be careful with that one.
Yeah.
Like,
because you'll create your own insecurities.
Well, but I was meaning more so like you got to be really careful with that one. Like, better for you. Not better in the grand like analysis of human beings exactly. You know what I mean? Like, there's a version inside of all of us that could probably be Mother Teresa. But no.
Right. You also need to be able to do give and take. Example, I have salad, he has macaroni and cheese.
Hey, I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it either. Leave my damn salad alone.
Hey, I bought the salads, all right?
I know.
I brought the salad into our relationship.
No, you didn't. You can thank Mary for bringing the salad into our relationship.
Okay.
Because she's the one that suggested them for lunch one day. And I was like, oh, that sounds lovely.
Well, yeah, though, granted, you still, like, and I have to say, in terms of relationships, I think the weirdest moment was, I do some things reflexively. Like, it's just a thing in my head that you do. And the first time I packed his lunch, it messed with his head. Like, it did. It messed you up.
Yes, it did. He packed me enough for an office.
I did. Because, I just have this assumption that nothing bad comes of overpacking a lunch. Like, nothing bad happens. Nothing. No one has ever suffered because a lunch was overpacked. Like, you just bring it back home. You just don't eat it. You just, give someone a sandwich because they forgot their lunch or they don't have time to run out or they whatever. Nothing bad happens. You underpack a person's lunch and bad shit happens.
Well, as long as you remember to put meat on their sandwich. But anyhow, that's a secondary story.
You got told in the beginning that story before I even started.
Exactly. And then you started packing like mini meals, which I normally prefer a lunch that's a leftover dinner, a mini dinner, especially when you're rotating food out. But, and then there's other things like being able to turn a problem into a joke or into an empowerment that a partner does, i.e., knock knock.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not finding that one nearly as funny as you do. You love that joke. But, and we are not getting onto that on this show. But
it pops you out of your head every time you start overthinking.
Well, but still. Maybe the barista chat, but not here. But no, like, but there are things that, like, you also have to notice how someone responds to, like, a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to notice that from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one gets out of this alive, and everyone has trauma. Like, and it's some of it's intentional. Like, some people just had shitty parents and shitty siblings and shitty ex-partners and shitty people all through their life. Sometimes it's an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes it's a joke gone too far that turned into a trauma. So, like, there's things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this one-off thing. Whatever, you got to notice when someone has trauma around something. And then you've got to figure out how to work with that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go into this one really quickly, and I'll try to do it as delicately as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Aeson, for example, has a real problem with what I can only term as fuck-up trauma. As in, if he has something that happens, he immediately goes into this belief that it's his fault, and he could have prevented it, and he should have done this, and he should have done that, and he should have done these 50 other things. And he expects for whoever enters this situation to yell, scream, berate, just yell all this stuff at him. Like, you're a fuck up, you didn't do this right, if you'd done it this way, blah, blah, blah. And he just waits for it. And it's like, no. Like, not doing that, like, it's a situation, it happened, like, we'll fix it, like, is where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all we can do. Like, I can sit here, like, I'm not saying I don't have, like, some first, like, knee-jerk shitty first drafts in my head. They're like, ah, I have those, but then it's like, but, yeah, what I really feel is like, oh, fuck, why did that have to happen today? And it's like, it's not his fault. It really isn't. Or even if it is, it's not, like, like, it's fixable. We'll fix it. It may take a little while, but we'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be okay. It's not a big deal. Grand scheme of the universe. Did anyone die? No one died. It'll be okay. And that took a while in our relationship. And even still, I think you still are just kind of like, you're waiting for it. Like, yeah, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one. He's going to blow. He's going to blow. I know he's going to, like, he's just going to explode. But you're, like, way better than the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Because that first time, like, you wouldn't talk to me for, like, 45 minutes. Like, you just kind of sat in the seat. And like, you just, like, randomly started apologizing for everything that you had ever done wrong, ever, actually. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can tell someone has really done a number on this one. in terms of like, I'm going to make you feel as bad as humanly possible for something that just, it's unfortunate. It happened. It sucks. We got to deal with it. Like, and instead of giving you that, someone just like decided that what would feel better for them was to unload their displeasure all over you. And like, recognizing that someone, like, those are the kind of things you have to recognize and go, yeah, we don't ever do that.
Right.
Like, that's not, no, we do not fuck with people's trauma.
Right.
Like, one, that's always like a gate check for me. It's like, no matter how bad it is, I cannot be that person for you.
Right.
One, and two, to also know that, like, if we get into a situation where someone looks like they're going to do that to you, it's like, no, we got to intervene because no one deserves that.
Right.
Like, those are people that are a real problem for you. Like, no. You can deal with me on that one. Like, I will take that in and I will work through that for them and help them with that. And then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, like, that's a really horrible coping skill that some people have without recognizing like what it does to other human beings, which is horrific. Like, you don't do this to people.
Yep.
Like, don't ever do this to people.
Right. So we do have a great big announcement. You guys are going to start having a Thursday show. Tea and Coffee is going weekly. Now, the co-host seat is going to be changing. We're going to be rotating through psychics. Of course, Dottie will still be going on Coffee and Tea on the third Thursday of each month. But each week, it's going to be a different one. We've got a full month. You know, I get to have coffee with different ones. So that will be occurring starting at 8 p.m. this Thursday with Tea and Coffee with Natalie McVickers. She's going to be having coffee with us the fourth Thursday of each month, talking about what's going on. Of course, she's drinking tea. I'm drinking my double bullet coffee. For those that aren't in the barista group, you guys really need to join that so you can get my bullet coffee recipe.
Yes.
But that will be going on. So I will be seeing you Thursday. Me and Joe will be back here with Mountain Bears on Friday. And our Patreons. Oh, we love our Patreons. We will be seeing you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. in our Zoom room. This is live interactive conversation. And we'll be talking about something because you guys didn't get a video Sunday for a reason.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be surprised.
Yeah. I think that's yeah. There you go. So yeah, that should be a fun conversation. We always like our barista chats. They're really cool. But yeah, and we do want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda Bryant, Ashley Guest, Shannon C, Shannon D, the ever wonderful Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, and Dottie the Psychic. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become one of our baristas by becoming a Patreon sponsor, please visit us at PCSPnetwork.com.
Yep. And until then, we'll see you later. You guys take care. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Stacked. You can whisper behind my back. You can show me how the odds are up against me all day long. But I've been through the fire and come out alive, and there's no more fear in my eyes. Oh, now I'm rising, and you can't bring me down. You can't stop me now.